Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with another episode of The Yakking Show. This is the show that brings you business tips and ideas that you can use straight away, and we do that by bringing expert guests. Today is no exception, but first, let's introduce co-host Kathleen from down the road from me in Waterloo. Hi, Kathleen, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. Her name is Deborah Johnson. Deborah is a speaker, author, consultant, and podcast host of Women at Halftime. Today, she will be yakking with us about having a successful business at the halftime phase of your life. Welcome, Deborah. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Well, let's get into it. Tell us first about your background and what led you on this particular career path.
Well, I have a large background, huge background as a professional musician and concert pianist. So I grew up taking my music lessons, of course, all of that, and started teaching at the age of 13. And because I did not want to pull weeds or babysit the 5 kids next door. So I decided to start teaching. I taught a few kids, and then their adults, their parents started taking from me. So it's just been a lifelong thing of that sort of element in what I do. And that's why the branching out into speaking was so it's a companion field. And so but I've been working as a musician for a lot of years, did a lot of touring, did a lot of main shows and headline shows, all of that, as a pianist, vocalist, and a composer. So I have a number of pieces available for download, all of that. So I have a lot of music out there. So but then I expanded into speaking, and I just came out with my 6th book. I'm a creator. I love to create. I have to hold myself back because there's too many ideas in this world to create. So then you have to market them. And but what really drives me, Kathleen and Peter, is helping people maximize their skills, resources, and experience. Because I just see a lot of people sitting on them. Either they get to a point in their life where they're ready for a change, but they're wondering, what do I do next? Can I really do this? I've always had a box, everything's around me, and telling me what to do. Now I want to do something else. What should I do? So just kind of maximizing all of that, because I've been a lifetime entrepreneur. I've understood how to do it in myself, but also I've taught for so many years, and to put those systems together. And that's just absolutely a joy. That's a long answer. So
it's a very good answer. Thank you for that. And yeah, very interesting answer. So you've started on. Let's pursue this one. Why do so many people get stuck, as you call it, in the roundabout at some sort of midpoint of their careers and their life? In fact, is it inertia or is it more than that?
I think it's more than that. A lot of times it's mental. It's a mindset of that. There's a certain element of, I'm getting older. Can I really do this? Can I handle tech? I'm kind of a techie because I've been in that field, but I tell you, the only reason I deal with tech is because I've been stuck in it for so long. I've really been stuck not being able to do something and then had to figure it out. So but there's that part. The world is moving so fast. I don't, feel like I'm a part of it anymore. I've heard all of those comments. So just understanding that you can do this, with the right support and the right input and all of that, there's a lot of possibilities, and we need those people with all of their experiences and their skills to still be helping those who are coming along, because there's a whole generation that needs that sort of input.
Sure, very much so. Yeah.
So
Kathleen,
how do you go about, Deborah, how do you go about helping someone who's feeling stuck in, say, in their current career or even in their life? Because, for instance, in their career, they might have been doing it for many, many years, and they just feel like this is all they know. So how do you help them?
Yeah, that's a common thing. And I don't do a lot of one-on-ones. I do mostly programs that I put together. But it's one of the reasons I've trademarked, and I have a whole program called Hero Mountain Summit, Getting to Your Summit. In fact, I wrote a book, an allegory all about getting to the summit, and I wrote all the steps in my Women at Halftime book. But the reason I wrote my latest one, Stop Circling and Escaping Your Endless Roundabouts, was I needed to put something simpler together to answer the question that you just asked, Kathleen. Because people they're not even ready to climb their summit. They're like spinning, they're asking all of those questions.
They're stuck in a rut.
Yeah, definitely. And they don't really even realize that they're completely stuck, or that they don't see an end to it. So I put together just some really simple steps of, identifying a position, not to being depressed about it, but just really looking realistically, where are you at? Then that second step is getting the perspective that you need and finding the right perspective. There's a number of places where you can get perspective. And then identifying a purpose, because that's what gets people out of bed in the morning and driving. And this can be even in a career that you already have, but you want to expand, or it could be something different totally. Or it could be going out into doing an entrepreneurial journey if you've not been into that field. But what I did when I was writing the purpose area, I really realized that people that get stuck in even identifying that, because they've not backtracked a bit to identify their core values. And my values at this point in my life are different. I have adult kids. And I know I look much too young. No, I'm just joking. But adult kids, I have a couple grandkids. But what I want to do, spending my time, I don't want to be touring full time right now. I want to be I do a lot of virtual events. I do select live events. I love live events. I've been on large stages. I love those, but I'm going to pick and choose what I want to do. That's why I'm developing more of my online content with my lifestyle, and I'm doing more travel. Peter, you said you were originally from South Africa. Well, we went to South Africa last summer. I mean, what an amazing trip that was. But you've got to create the time, you've got to create the space to be able to do things like that. So automating a lot of my business and to being able to post from around the world and all of that, and still keep up with contacts. That's a challenge, but I help other people to do some of those same sort of things if that's the direction they want to go. But it's going through those parts, but I've stressed even more, just make sure that you spend time with those values. I wrote a whole chapter. It's in the appendix of my Stop Circling book, but it might be the most important chapter in the book, because people don't stop to do that. They go through all of these steps and then just go, but they're not really evaluating what those values are. And they're usually consistent through your life. They might change a little bit in their emphasis, but they're usually very consistent throughout your life.
So I'm going to go slightly in a different direction now. You sort of said to me why people get stuck and why they don't want to change. What happens in your experience, people who are subject to some external force, in other words, a proverbial kick in the butt, through being laid off, through divorce, through serious illness, through whatever, in my case, having to change continent because of political reasons, for instance, do those people pick up and find a new direction easier than those who haven't had that big shock? What would you say about that?
It really depends. I actually interviewed our guide, South Africa guide, who did the same thing that you did. He picked up and moved to Canada. The same thing. Yes. Fascinating story. And, his family was under attack. They had to, all of them learn to use weapons when they were growing up, the whole thing of apartheid. But some people have never learned resilience. But I find a
Yeah.
lot of people, and we've read these inspiring stories with the people that have come from those hard backgrounds, that have developed resilience. They developed the ability to persevere. And a lot of us get a little soft, we, and then, anything comes our way and we just give up. And there's a certain amount of that. There's that song, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
So and it's very, very true. I wrote the Hero Inside song way before I developed the speech and the trademark for it, because it was all about the hero inside that all of us have. I wrote that some years ago. But that is what it's a choice, Peter. It's a real choice of where you're going to focus your mindset. And if we decide to just keep us down, it will. It's hard. It's not easy. That's why you have to surround yourself with the right type of people.
Yep.
That will help you through that. And I wrote about this in my Women at Halftime book with our relationship circles, because people depend on, okay, I got all these friends, I got all these contacts, and look at your circle, trusted circle of contacts. I've had the same lifetime group probably for 15, 20 years. And that the very important, trusted, that you could, share with and encourage each other on that, and getting the right perspective. So I think some of that, Peter, it really depends on the choices that people are making, whether they say, I can do this, and work through it. Let yourself be sad. Let yourself be depressed. Let yourself go through that. That's fine. Because a lot of times it's even your fear. It's a good way to gauge where you're at and the reality of the situation. When you were moving from your situation in South Africa, it was, and some people had to do that. They're just fearing for their lives, and they've learned how to, amazing how to, to do something else. And necessity is the mother of an invention of your,
Absolutely.
Did I say that right? Invention is
necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah, no, you're right.
I thought I had it right. It's like I was thinking too hard.
You got it right.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a full answer, but part of it is the fact that it's a choice, and whether to let the situation help you be stronger. It's like an athlete I am married a professional athlete, so I'm really athletic talk quite a bit and raising sons, but you're not going to get faster in a race unless you go through the pain. And that's part of our life journey, and it's not easy mentally. It's not easy.
It's not.
Yeah. So, finding the resources, the help, the guidance that will help you is so very, very well worth it.
I'm going to throw a little personal thought in here. You see the poster on the door behind me.
Yes.
You'll know what I'm talking about. That is a picture of me running the Comrades Marathon in South Africa. I don't know if you heard about the Comrades Marathon when you were there, but it's over 50 miles, 85 kilometers, and it's either from sea level to 2,500 feet, or 1 year up, 1 year down. And it's the dream of every South African runner to run that at least once. I did 4, and that's where the pain comes in. Believe me. I just wondered if you'd heard about that in South Africa at all.
I think that was the race. We were there. We had to take a detour. So we had to, work our way around. And I heard about it, but I didn't know if that was the race.
That's the race.
But there were a lot of people there. But it was fascinating,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It used to be the biggest ultramarathon in the world.
Wow.
That was way 20, 30 years ago when I ran it. Then, of course, New York and London have all taken over. It's interesting. Anyway, sorry, this is not about me. This is about you. So
Oh, it's fascinating.
back to Kathleen to get me back on track.
Deborah, you just touched on your music career earlier, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. You've had a very successful music career, and I've heard about Grammys. Tell us
Yeah,
more.
I was up for a number of Grammys. Did not actually win one, but I was up for a number of Grammys. Yeah, the process is amazing, and I'm an independent artist. But I grew up starting in piano and added the voice, and so I was a double major. I got kind of pushed into education. But I started touring when I was in college and kept that up. Probably I did a solo show. So I did a musical theater kind of solo show featuring the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber and of Gershwin, because I have the high and low notes. I can sing those money notes. So that's the solo shows, and then I'd fly out bands with me, and I've done just work as a musician for a number of years. And then I linked up with another main artist, and we did a double piano show. A lot of large arenas and large places. We did headline work there too. A lot of fun. Did between all of the special effects and that we did video and props and all that sort of prop suitcases that we carried across the country. But anyway, a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a whole lot of fun. I learned a lot, and from this colleague, and as well, you always learn from each other. So he was wonderful, and that was called Double Grande. The coffee grande, so that we kind of did that. I don't know if anybody even got it, but anyway, but it was that was a lot of fun, and I still do some work as a musician. That will never end for me, and I'm putting out more of my sheet music. I have a lot of music still that I still don't have the sheet music crafted and to be released. So I'm gradually doing more. I have probably about 100 and almost 200, maybe, I don't know, a lot of pieces that are available for download online. So yeah, there's just a lot of that. I could work for the next 10 years just on music. But yeah, it's just a lot of that. But again, I'm a creator, and that's what I love. But I love to help people create their next act and their what they're going to do next, and it's very much within my wheelhouse to be able to do that. And so that's a little bit of my music, and that will never end. I tell my kids when I'm old and I start losing my mind, hopefully I'll keep it, but you never know. But music's the last thing to go. And I said, I'll probably never quit playing and singing. I'll just probably, put me in the home, and then I'll have a lot of music that'll just still be there. Because it's the first people kind of the sensory through that your brain, and then it's usually the last, and that's why you hear people all of a sudden sing full songs, or they remember all of this music,
and it's great therapy.
Yeah, and it's wonderful therapy. Yeah, music therapy is wonderful. So
right. I have such respect and admiration for musicians. I really do. I just think, wow, such talent. So kudos to you, Deborah. To you, Peter.
I'm going to ask Deborah another music question, quick one. Where did the push for you to develop your music career come from? Was it purely internal because you love music and wanted to do it, or were you pushed by parents and outside influences, tutors and the like, or did they just encourage what you had as a natural desire and talent?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I am asked that. I wanted to take first, I wanted to take organ because I just thought it was so fun with all the pedals and all the stuff.
Stops.
But yeah, the stops. But then I was encouraged to start on piano, and I really wanted to take. Now I have a grandmother, my mom's mom, that came over from Italy, and that she was a concert violinist. She played in Carnegie Hall at the age of 16, violin and mandolin. Wow. And then she graduated from the New York Conservatory of Music. And so it was, for that day, it was huge. But then she went into an arranged marriage and had a dozen kids and never played again. But that was just the time. So there's music genes. In fact, I have one of my sisters was a professional, is a violinist, and I was her free accompanist growing up. So
Wow.
she played, and we all took music. My mom was very committed for us being in music. Now, I loved music, but I didn't always love to practice. So that is one of the hardest disciplines with anything almost. And how to drive that in music is harder, because it's not like sports where you're playing every weekend or you're with your team and you're all working together. It is, it's an individual sport, and you're, whatever you're going to call it. And, you're practicing and you're thinking, oh, these exercises are just, boring. So that sort of, she would have to, my mom would be encouraging us just to get that practice in, and she'd have different little, gifts and all these sort of things that we're supposed to. And the piano was in my room first. And so, because my mom said, when you play good enough, we'll put the piano in the living room. And it was an old upright she had gotten almost for free, probably. And, but it worked. A heavy thing. And so it was in my room, and she would sit on my bed and count the number of times I would play through my scales, play through my arpeggios. She didn't know them, but she was able to count how many times I did. So, and it's the reason I can just play for hours. Now I don't have to look at the hands, but that's the repetition. And I learned how important that exact repetition is. It's important in sports. And it's one of the reasons that my husband and we get along great. I am so non-sports. It's funny. So, but as far as abilities, I mean, I work out, but it's just, it's different. But both of us understood entertainment and the type of practice and repetition that is important. And it's a good life principle. And so, I think that answers some of your question of this. It ended up being a drive through. I was saying, I don't know what else I wanted to do. I didn't think of any, I got kind of pushed into teaching a little more. I wanted to be in performance, but that's what they do. They make you choose when you're in a college, and they make you choose. Okay. And that, because I was a good teacher, I've taught for so many years, I got kind of pushed in that area into, working with some of the top trainers. And then I got contract offers when they weren't even being made. And it's like, do I even want to teach? And so I did a couple of years. I've taught even at the universities and everywhere, but it wasn't my first love to be in the classroom. And I've always known that. So, the entrepreneurial route is not always the easiest. You don't get that little pension and everything else, but it's very, very rewarding. And I'm doing what I love to do. So I think there's certain sacrifices that you make in that, but I've worked very hard. And when one thing doesn't work, you try something else.
Absolutely.
There you go.
So I'm just going to push this one, if I may, Kathleen, just a little bit more, because I don't want to tell Deborah my story, because it's not about me. But what advice would you have for parents whose children show some musical ability and may or may not want to make a career out of it? How do you get the balance right? How do you advise them to get the balance right between pushing the child and pushing so hard you turn the child off? You got any advice for parents on that one?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It's right. I wrote the book, Music for Kids.
Oh, there you
go. But because I was asked so many times, when should I start little Charlie on piano lessons? Because he's so talented. I'm sure he's a genius. I recommend age 8 or 9, and boys usually 9. Sometimes girls can be about 8. But I use the illustration that this just needs to be a part of their education. They don't need to be a musician. In fact, I recommend very few going to the musician field. I recommend, because I've had a lot of interns from the college, our local university, and their music majors. I'm thinking, this guy needs to be a business major, and they can minor in their music. They're never. How are you going to work in this field? It's a tough field. You need to be doing film score. You need to be doing so many of those things. And there's very few, actually, but you can tell those that would have some sort of bent, but it needs to be a little bit more self-driven. You can encourage. But I encourage music, and this is why it's really upsetting if they cut music from curriculums in schools, because it's so good for their spatial reasoning. It's good for their identify ear. It's good for listening. It's good for repetition. It's all of those things with music. People can sometimes sing things back and they can't say things back.
Mhm.
And it's so very good for us mentally and for those kids growing up. And I don't teach anymore, but I'm teaching my granddaughters. And they're not going to be, I always tell, they're not going to be musicians. Just, there's that expectation, but it's a part of their education,
Right.
part of it going through, and it's something I can give them. Plus it gives me a little extra time with them. I have a couple that are more local. So they're just two actually granddaughters. I'm hoping for more eventually, but but it's so good for them developing all of those motor skills, and especially with piano with the both hands.
Mhm.
It's good.
Right.
Sure.
And then they can branch out once you know the chords, and once you know those basics, and once you know the theory, they can branch out anywhere. I think that answered your question.
Sure.
It does very much. Thank you. Thank you. Now I've got to watch time. So tell our audience about your Hero Mountain Summit.
Hero Mountain Summit is a 20-week program, and I have a free webinar coming up that if you get on my newsletter list, or if you just check online, you'll see that too. A free webinar that's really an introduction webinar to it, that tells you all the steps, and it goes through a lot of what my Women at Halftime book goes through, but a lot of people don't read. They just don't read, or they don't follow the application guides that I put in here. So the Hero Mountain Summit gives you a guide. It goes through all of those 6 steps of your mindsets, your skills, your competency, habits, relationships, and purpose. It goes through all of those. So it's kind of, the step that goes through step by step with a guide that helps you really kind of a pace throughout. And then if you choose to go further, you can go further. But it's going to give you a lot of those basics where people are kind of, I need to do something that's, reasonable, that's going to keep me accountable every single week. And so that's where I put together at the 20 weeks. It's not too long. And it gives enough time to go through each one of those steps, which really we start with mindset. A lot of people are just stuck right there. So, and we go through some of the things I even cover with my Roundabout Hero, such as the Hackers tool that's in there of evaluating where you're at. It helps you give that position and where you're at, and the mindset that you have facing really realistically where you're at, and that you can go on from there.
So
good.
Deborah, you've mentioned your books throughout our chat with you, but can you give us a little bit more about your books and your podcast?
Sure. My books are, I have, just coming out with my 6. This is my latest. Of course, if you're on video, you can see it. Yes. I love like books you can hold, but it's available, of course, as an ebook and audiobook. But the Stop Circling, and this was really, it's very simple, but yet very applicable. And so I put the study guide right in it, because I don't want people to have to buy anything else. This is it, and they can go through this. They can even write in the book. The book before that was the Summit, which is, and I just have 3 with me, by the way, right here. So this one is an allegory. It was one of the hardest books I've written, because I've written musicals too, by the way, that we didn't get into that. We don't need to, but writing the book of a musical is the hardest thing, is to cut it down to make sure it's very, very focused. And that's what an allegory is. It's a story within a story. And it was great fun talking about Mallory. Her name is, she's the protagonist. Her name means ill-fated. And she has to go through this journey of all of these areas to get even the social media surface, everything, to be able to climb her summit. And her name changes to Andriette, which means strong and courageous. But she has to go through all of that. And then Women at Halftime, that I think I have all of these here because I just did another podcast this morning. So this one is the one that goes through the steps of Hero Mountain Summit as well. But I wrote this, and then I started my podcast, and I had kind of gone through the halftime mid-career, halftime of life. Some people that are come to me, they go, well, I think I'm in the last third, but whatever, this longevity, we have more longevity these days. I also wrote a book called Bad Code, which is a great fun book, very applicable, talking about how the technical code and virtual world applies directly to our mindset in our mental code. And so I compare those in a lot of those terms, and I did interviews with that book as well of people going through the decades of code from the 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way through. So that's a fun book. And I have a couple others, so you can look those up, but those are great fun. And then Women at Halftime. Yeah, Women at Halftime. You can just look that up, podcast. I think we're, been going now for a while. As this airs, we'll be well past our 200 mark, I think 230 or something like that. I don't know, 220, but it's great fun. I love it. Producing is in my wheelhouse, and it's great fun to do. And I do one interview a month. Then my husband's on with me once a month, because we have a lot to say together, and we've been married.
I read about
years.
that.
Yeah. And then I speak at least a couple times a month. Sometimes I'll slip in a bonus too.
So what kind of people do you interview on your Women at Halftime podcast?
There's a variety.
Okay.
It depends on what like I'm interviewing. I don't think, as this airs, I'm not sure if his episode will be up, but it's all on AI. So all of the new technical AI, I've interviewed on mindset. So I interviewed one that wrote The Imposter Syndrome about that. I've interviewed an attorney that created a SaaS program for attorneys to help them with the paperwork. It's a smattering of people. I interviewed a guy who got into, that I've known for years, got into the ground level of Herbalife, and has been with that organization. I mean, he's in the top tier, and he has been, but he went through a lot of struggles, and he started out as a school bus driver and came all the way through. So you just, stories, kind of selective. I get a lot of requests, but kind of selective that way, but that will help people, encourage people through their journey, and just a variety of people that have a story that I can share. And I know this is all about a story. So your show, which is really fun. That's what keeps people interested. So,
well, thank you. And Peter, we are running short on time, but I know you do have a burning question. So,
Deborah, I've got to ask Deb. I have to ask Deborah my burning question, but I'm going to follow up and watch some more episodes of your show. I had a quick look at one, unfortunately ran out of time, but I'm certainly going to be spending some time on that. So here's the burning question. Deborah, in your experience, and you've had, compared to most people, a huge amount of experience between your music world, speaking, writing books. I mean, you've done more than the average 5 people do in 5 lifetimes. So in all that experience, is there one habit, mindset, or characteristic that sets the successful people apart from the average? And that could be success in business. It could be success as a musician. It could be success as a mother, as a wife, whatever. What's your opinion on that? Is it one thing or more complicated?
I think there's more, but I think ingrained in that, as far as habits, tenacity. When I was first called tenacious, I had to go look it up because I thought it was a bad word, but tenacity was when I was producing my very first album. And my producer said, or the engineer said, "You're tenacious." I'm thinking, I have no idea what that means. So I had to go and look it up. But also persistence. But I get up early. It's just the habits. Create a habit that can help you stay consistent in life. And so I get up early, I exercise, do the things for your body, eating right, exercise, those sort of things. All of that comes together. But I think, the fact, and I just produced another, that it's already out, the podcast out of just never give up. We've heard that for years, even from Winston Churchill, all of that. But that sort of phrase, that doesn't mean you're not willing to change. You can change. And you can pivot. Oh, everybody hates that word pivot after, shutdowns, but you can change, but you still have to have that sort of mindset that no, it's not worth giving up. And I tell you, it doesn't matter what level you're at, you're going to still have those same feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear it, these beautiful models, and there's, everybody that, facing this, oh, I don't feel good about myself, all of that stuff. And, oh, maybe I should give it up. It doesn't matter. I face some of those feelings. To be honest, it's like, okay, is this going as fast as I want? Should I just throw in the towel? So once in a while I go through those same little things like everybody else goes. You think, oh, you've done so much, but that's those sort of mindsets. You have to surround yourself with not only the influences, but the patterns of life that help you not give up.
Yep.
And I think that is probably one of the most important things, and not being afraid to change, not being afraid to admit, this isn't working. Let's move another, or, a different direction or something. It's okay.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Deborah. Very good.
How do people contact you, and how do they get your books?
Thank you so much. It's so cute because you're both going back and forth, and Peter keeps coming right in here. That's great. The best way to stay in contact, and I know people are overwhelmed with newsletters, but I do have a newsletter, but you can go to my website anytime too. But my newsletter is goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Easy. goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. You can get there also on my Deborah Johnson speaker website. You can get there on my DJ Works Music website. And you can always find a place, to sign up or to get the updates. I have a newsletter coming out every week also on LinkedIn, but it's not going to have all that has the weekend edition that I put in extra music links. I put in all of the extra things that are, coupons and things for different things having, and I give away a lot of free stuff. So I have a lot of content. So anyway, that's kind of the best way to stay in contact with me. And you can always email me through my site. I don't just broadcast that because I get so many spam calls. Sure. So anyway, as we all do.
As we all do, yeah.
Yes.
And then your books.
But that's the best way. And my books are all on Amazon. You can find all of them. And you can go, if you go to my website, you will find a link. They're all over there. So you can even find my author page on there. And if you're looking for music, it's the DJ Works Music is all on there too. I have albums. If anybody still plays CDs, yes, I have them. I can ship them, and I have music books. All of that is available if they want the actual music in their hands. I'm able to produce those here, but otherwise it's all downloadable as well. Excellent.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful. For our audio listeners, all that information will be in the description if you didn't see it as a subtitle. Back to you, Kathleen.
Well, Deborah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciated it. And thank you all again for tuning into our show. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, please visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.